Dig, fight, explore, and build. These were the ingredients chosen for the perfect little game, at least according to Terraria's Steam summary. But what if you were to remove the first word of that sentence, the most defining and important part of the game? Digging. Is it even possible? Today I put that question to the test. I set out on a small world in Terraria 1.4.3.6, the latest update, on a brand new random seed for the most complicated challenge I've done yet. Now let me set up some rules for this challenge. Some of you may have seen Happy Day's video of a similar idea, but let me get this straight. This is not the same thing. His video is, can you beat Terraria without mining any blocks? My idea is beating Terraria without breaking any blocks. There's a clear difference. One of Happy Day's rules was that you can break any blocks that the character can walk through, such as trees, furniture, and life crystals. But that's too easy. In fact, as soon as I entered the world, I threw my copper pickaxe and axe in the trash, and didn't obtain another one of either of those tools for the rest of the playthrough. Any kind of explosive is not allowed either. I allowed myself to use only a hammer, so any block that turns into an item when the block below it is hammered is fair game. I also allowed myself to use actuators, but only if absolutely necessary, as you'll see. The playthrough is over once I have defeated the Moonlord. Let's go. We begin our journey as anyone else in Terraria would. Throw away my tools, completely ignore the trees, and head straight for a cave. I find a chest with some very average loot in it, and explore into a cave which leads directly to a dead end. What I need to find is some surface chests, as they may have weapons such as the blowpipe and wooden boomerang I found, and they actually contain wood in them, along with some bars. This is how we are going to get our wood for our base, a crafting bench, and our trusty hammer, which will prove to be a very important asset. I drink a mining potion and cry because it doesn't help the fact that I cannot fit down this hole. I then find the main cave entrance to the underground jungle, which will absolutely be the most important cave of the playthrough, and I can't fit. Turns out the other spot before is actually the underground jungle entrance. At this point, I thought it was game over. How am I going to get into the underground jungle, the most important biome of Terraria? Despite my lack of faith, I kept exploring east until I hit a living tree. I was able to open the chest inside of it and get an epic wooden stool, and then realized I can't break through this tree. Turns out space is very close to the surface on small worlds, so a harpy pushed me to my death. I get some more iron bars from a chest and explore this cave to its end. Its end wasn't very far. That's 4 out of 4 dead ends so far. Past the tundra to the west of the world, I came across the Crimson. I decided to go straight past the Crimson Cave, as I literally can't do anything in there without bombs or a pick, and those are banned. Yes, that's right, we are completely skipping the brain of Cthulhu. I keep heading west until I bump into the dungeon. The dungeon will be a very important step of this playthrough, but only after Skeletron has been defeated. Further west, I bump into another set of living trees. At the living trees, I combine a fallen star with my wooden boomerang to create an enchanted boomerang. And then I manage to traverse my way over them safely this time and arrive at the beach, where I meet the angler. I decide it's now time to start building a base for some NPCs. The merchant will prove to be quite important with the furnace that he sells and the buyable arrows. I make myself an anvil and create a much bigger room for the guide than he needed. I head back over to the jungle with a new wooden hammer and hammer the stone roof into a slab and slip right into the cave. The wooden hammer single-handedly saved this run. I dive deeper into the cave and find my first life crystal. At this point, I thought I was doing a 100 HP playthrough, as I didn't see a way to obtain the life crystals. They don't break from a hammer like they used to. So, slightly defeated, I delve deeper into the cave. I find a jungle shrine and get a new companion, a little pet turtle. Attempting to get to the rich mahogany tree and open the chest, I end up hammering myself into a mess of leaves. Good thing I could slowly slide right back to safety. At the bottom of the jungle cave is a marble biome. This marble biome will be very important later on, but for now it contained a water chest with a suspicious looking eye in it. In other news, the marble is a dead end, and not only that, but the entire jungle is a dead end and doesn't lead anywhere. I then find a heart statue, which I didn't end up using, but I wanted to grab it. I then realized if I hammer the block underneath it, that the statue will fall right into my inventory. I then came to the realization that I can do the exact same thing with the life crystals, so I head back up and consume the heart. I then head back home in a painful way. I decided to create some new armor with the bars I got from some chests. I make a tin helmet and a piece of armor that I later regretted making entirely, an iron chest plate. This is one of the biggest mistakes I made in this run. In a spur of the moment decision, I consumed my suspicious looking eye, deciding to fight the Eye of Cthulhu tonight. Wielding only an enchanted boomerang, blowpipe, and a copper short sword, I slayed the eye with flying colors too. I explore the East Beach and end up getting some water walking boots from a chest. The merchant moves in, but doesn't sell a furnace. One Google later, and I move the merchant to a house in the jungle and purchase the furnace from him. I also buy a piggy bank, as that can be some storage. Now, a big problem I had with this playthrough was storage. I used all my iron on the chest plate, and I cannot obtain natural chests for storage, as they can be only broken with a pickaxe. So, I had to do with only 2 inventories worth of storage now. At this point, I had explored almost every corner of the world I could. Every cave led to a dead end, and I had almost all the loot I could obtain. There was one place I haven't explored yet though, the Crimson Cave. It turned out to have a life crystal in it, which was a pleasant sight, but apart from that, it had nothing else to offer. I headed home and greeted the new addition to our base, the Dryad. Now, she sells grass walls, which will be important for saving wood, as they are purchasable walls. But there was another item she sold that I hadn't thought about since 2012, an item that could change the entire fate of the playthrough, the Dirt Rod. As the Dirt Rod states, it magically moves dirt. It doesn't break anything. So essentially, I could move the dirt somewhere else and tunnel through dirt. I also came across a gold bunny, which a merchant was very pleased to purchase off me. With nothing else to do, I head over to the dungeon. It's time to fight Skeletron, with only some crappy armor and a broken tendon bow. With some expert movement and the clutch of the feather falling potion, I was able to destroy Skeletron and free the curse of the old man. I then delved deep into the dungeon, and I'll spare you most of the details here. I ended up dying a lot, and having to slowly traverse back to the dungeon, as I hadn't found any golden chests at this point, so no Hermes boots. There was one main thing I was looking for in the dungeon: Teleportation Potions. If I was able to get a few of them, I could possibly be teleported into the underworld, or a cave that connects to it. It was my only hope. Spoiler alert, I didn't find a single teleportation potion. I don't know what the chances of that are, but the wiki says chests have a 1 in 3 chance of containing 1 to 2 teleportation potions. And I opened every last chest in the world I could access. I did end up getting a shadow key, Muramasa, handgun, and basically every dungeon weapon you can get. And I also crafted some necro armor out of bones and cobweb. I also searched some sky islands and ended up getting some fledgling wings. Feeling defeated, I did not know what to do. I ended up spending a lot of time slowly dirt rod tunneling, but wherever I tunneled would end up getting blocked by stone or clay. Not knowing if this challenge was even possible, I ended up having to look at a Terraria map viewer to see if there was even a passage I could take with a dirt rod that would lead me to the underworld. There wasn't one. Everything would end up getting blocked by stone eventually. Then I looked over to the jungle. Turned out that my one passageway into the underworld was about 10 blocks away. The marble biome that was generated in the jungle blocked it. So this was the one time in the playthrough I decided to use actuators. It was literally the only way I could beat this challenge. It was either that or keep creating new worlds until I got the right seed where I could get from the surface to hell. So I bought some actuators and wires and created a passageway to the underworld without breaking any blocks. Now in the underworld, I scoped out how much space I had to work with for the Wall of Flesh fight. I explored west, finding some shadow chests and obtaining a dark lance and a hellwing bow. I kept going until I got to a ruined house which had no entry and was blocked by some ash on top of it. With 220 health, a hellwing bow, and very limited amount of space for this fight, and a dream, I was ready to fight the Wall of Flesh. If I end up running out of space and bump into the impenetrable ruined house, I can tank a few hits from the Wall of Flesh and allow it to drag me past the house. I then waited for the guide voodoo demon to spawn and threw the doll into the lava. This is it. Will I be able to defeat the hardest pre-hard mode boss with such a limited space, without Hermes boots, without rocket boots? This will truly be the hardest challenge yet in this playthrough. The ultimate test. And it's over. That fight literally took me a minute. Looting the wall of flesh, we get a pwn hammer, a great upgrade to our wooden hammer for whacking locks, and a ranger emblem. Now is the real challenge. I have to fight the mechanical bosses to progress the game. To obtain the summons, a mechanical worm, mechanical eye, and a mechanical skull, I'm going to need a good amount of souls of light and night, and iron bars, which, as you know, I am abundantly low on. None of my caves go deep enough to reach the underground crimson or hallowed, where they drop their respective souls, as I need to be in the cavern layer. At first, I tried to dirt rod my way into a hallowed cave and fish for some chaos fish, and then create some teleportation potions with them. Then I realized that they can only be caught in the cavern layers. But an idea brews in my mind. I could use the wall of flesh and purposely let it drag me through the impassable ruined house so that I can enter the underground hallowed and crimson from the underworld roof caves. This means I'll have to wait to kill the boss until it is past the right ruined houses. I tried this and died horribly. I am not quite prepared to take the wall head first. I decided to do something about that. After gathering a lot of crates from fishing that I will spare you from, I got quite lucky and was able to craft an entire set of titanium armor and got some life crystals to defend myself from the wall. Although the armor is nerfed, it should do the trick. The strategy seemed to be working pretty well, passing through the houses and staying alive thanks to the leeches dropping hearts. And then, with one strike of my dark lance, I accidentally killed it early. Luckily though, I was right below an underground crimson. And then I remembered a trick that I could have used the whole time. If you place 3 platforms on top of each other and hammer them into stairs, you can phase through any 1 block wide vertical wall by holding down and left or right. While the wall of flesh strategy ended up being insignificant, it still is my more favorable big brain strat. I then went to the dungeon to farm some bones so that I could create some bone platforms and pass through all the ruined houses in my path. Both the underground hallowed and the underground crimson had their own caves that I could farm in, but unfortunately, they were very small. Thinking ahead, I had 2 options. I could either fish in the hallowed for some chaos fish to craft teleportation potions and hope that they would land me in the lizard temple post Plantera, or I could farm for the Rod of Discord, a 1 in 500 chance, 0.2% of dropping. I opted to fishing as I just didn't want to farm for a Rod of Discord. But the problem was, wherever I set up a fishing pond, for some reason I couldn't catch any underground hallowed fish. So, dreading the journey in front of me, I bit the bullet. And I decided I would use the small cave that I had to the west of the underworld to farm chaos elementals, which very rarely spawned in this small cave, and hope for a Rod of Discord drop. The problem is that whenever I want an item to drop in Terraria, it just doesn't drop. One time I was farming for vitamins with my friend, a 1 in 50 drop on expert mode, and after killing hundreds of floaty growths, I got a crimson key, a 1 in 2,500 drop after getting 2 crimson keys beforehand. That's 1 in 7,500 before a 1 in 50 drop. I just got a crimson key! As just an example of my unluckiness. But I did find a mechanical skull along the rod grind, which had a 1 in 2,500 chance of dropping from an enemy post wall of flesh, so maybe my luck was up. Turns out, it was. After 2 hours of farming for the Rod of Discord, I finally got it. I hadn't even got a banner for killing 50 chaos elementals yet, meaning I got extremely lucky. It did take me 2 hours, but it should have taken me 10 times that long, meaning I would have been farming for the next 20 hours at full odds. Finally moving on, I now have the greatest tool for this challenge at my disposal. I can now teleport into any cave that is anywhere on my screen. I use this new tool to transport myself to chests that I could not get to before, getting items such as Dune Rider boots, an alternative to Hermes boots. After a long time of searching chests, I ended up getting the iron that I needed for the summons. In fact, I had gotten enough to make a couple of chests to store my items. I used the 3rd chest I crafted to create a hallowed mimic with a key of light, attempting to get the Daedalus Stormbow. Successfully killing the first hallowed mimic, it only drops a flying knife. Then I realized I could have used an empty natural chest in the world to spawn the hallowed mimic instead of wasting precious iron on them. But good news is, I got the Stormbow in only 2 mimics, and it has a slow modifier on it. At this point, I'm asking myself, why hasn't a goblin army happened yet? I sure would like some rocket boots and a tinkerer's bench. I've been playing for 10 hours at this point and they haven't invaded yet. And then I realized the only way for the goblin army to arrive is if you've smashed a crimson heart. I couldn't do that before, so the only way I could have summoned them is if I used a goblin battle standard. But now with the Rod of Discord, I teleported myself close enough to hammer the crimson heart and allow the goblins to arrive. That night, I decided on fighting the Destroyer and the Twins. While the Destroyer was a relatively close call, it was nothing I couldn't do, especially with a Daedalus Stormbow in hand and Jester arrows. The Twins were a walk in the park, even with my limited movement speed. I did craft some Angel Wings a while back, so those helped a lot against the fight. I took Retinizer out first, and then Spasmatism soon after, now having defeated 2 mechanical bosses in the same night. The Goblin army was taking too long, so I went to the outer 6th of the map and farmed some Goblin Scouts, and then crafted a Goblin Battle Standard, after finally finding a loom in a cave. Now with the Goblin army defeated, I explored the cavern layer until I found the Tinkerer and reforged my bow in preparation for the Skeletron Prime fight. That night, I summoned the Metal Skull, and with flying colors, barely getting hit, I destroyed the mechanical skeleton in no time, leading to the jungle growing restlessly. In preparation for playing Terra, I crafted some Ichor arrows and headed to the jungle. I came across a beehive and decided to fight the queen bee just for the hell of it. Funnily enough, I actually came closer to dying in this fight than any other fight so far. Searching the jungle further, I finally came across Plantera's bulb and fought the plant monstrosity. This fight was actually quite a difficult one as it was underground, meaning that the Stormbow wasn't effective unless there wasn't a roof on the screen. I had to have a lot of space for it to be effective, and that wasn't easy, as I had to use the natural terrain to fight her. Because of that, I actually ultimately died to a boss for the first time in the playthrough. Trust me, it won't be the last. But at some point while I was in the jungle, I got a tattered bee wing, meaning I could get improved wings. After fighting the wyvern a couple times, I set out to find another bulb. I finally came across one in the middle of this tiny cave, so I had to Rod of Discord out of it and make my way to a cave big enough to fight the boss. I chose to teleport into the granite biome, which has a large open space and didn't enrage Plantera. With much more space and some well-timed teleports, I was able to defeat Plantera and obtain a grenade launcher and the temple key, which we won't need. Conveniently, the temple is right on the edge of the granite biome, so now that I am post Plantera, I was able to teleport straight into the temple. As you can see, the entrance of the temple was completely blocked off, so it would have been almost completely impossible to defeat this challenge without a Rod of Discord. Now post Plantera, I decided I would fight the Empress of Light as opposed to fighting the Golem. I decided I needed a better weapon for the Golem. The room for the Golem is a pretty confined space. Was it a good idea to fight the Empress of Light pre-Golem? No, but to be honest, the bosses in this challenge were a bit too easy, so I craved a bit of a challenge. And boy, was it a challenge. My lack of movement speed and a dash made this fight very difficult, but the Rod of Discord made it especially possible. With some very close calls, it was just a matter of time until the Empress would fall to me. At this point, I was running low on potions. I had no way of making swiftness potions and was completely out, as they need cactus. I also was very low on bottles, meaning I had a very limited amount of potions I could make. I decided to make some endurance, regen, archery, and rage potions, and continue the fighting. After about 10 failed attempts at the Empress of Light, I made it to the successful fight. Being warmed up to the fight and learning where I need to teleport to dodge her attacks, I was able to triumph over the bullet hell, and her crown was now mine. She dropped a kaleidoscope, which doesn't help me since I'm not much of a summoner, but she did drop her Empress wings, which are a huge help. Not happy with the kaleidoscope, I fought the Empress once more, defeating her and getting the Night Glow, which I could work with. I decided to switch my class from range to mage to work around the Night Glow, which really only took making the hallowed headgear and swapping it out for the helmet. I then headed down to the Lizard Temple with my new weapon. You can never underestimate the newly buffed Golem. Although I should have, because the Night Glow absolutely annihilated him. I didn't even have to aim. The Night Glow did everything for me. I fought it a second time for a rematch and got something brand new for my trash collection. Now with only one thing in sight, I headed over to the dungeon and murdered the 4 cultists, summoning the Lunatic. I got hit a couple times at the start of the fight, but apart from that, the entire fight was no hit, and I destroyed him with my godly Night Glow. And now for everyone's favorite part of the game, the Celestial Pillars. Conveniently, the Vortex Pillar was right on the dungeon, which was my most prioritized pillar for the Phantasm. The Night Glow actually made the pillars bearable, as its projectiles home in on enemies. The only one that really caused me any trouble was as per usual, the Zola pillar. I hate that pillar with all my heart. Now with all the pillars destroyed, there was only one challenge ahead of us. With impending doom approaching, I headed home and created some super healing potions and awaited for the Moonlord to arrive. As I have the rod of Discord, dodging the death laser won't be too tricky. The main issue is that the only buff I have left is an archery potion, and I am wearing hallowed armor, being the best armor I could have crafted. I could have done the Old One's army and gotten the Tavern Keeper's armor, but in case you didn't notice, I didn't come across the Tavern Keeper in my whole playthrough. Dodging the Moonlord's attacks and making sure I shot its top eye whenever it was open, I was able to open up the core and start chipping at its main health. Using the whole world as my platform, it was a close call, but eventually I was able to bring the Moonlord to his metaphorical knees on my first try, and I was officially the victor of Terraria without breaking a single block. Thank you so much for watching this video. This playthrough took me over 15 hours to finish, but I managed to beat it on the literal first world I created. There were many points where I seriously thought this was unbeatable and I had to restart, but I committed to the world and I saw it through. If you got this far into the video, please consider subscribing and liking so I know that you enjoy videos like these. I'll see you all next time.